Expo. We're in the Fish Hawk booth here in Niagara Falls, New York, and I am joined by the three instructors of this year's salmon school. We've got Captain Bob Songen, Captain Brian Garrett, and Captain Nick Glosser, all here at the Fish Hawk booth. I really appreciate you guys spending some time with us here today. We're going to talk a little bit of fishing, but before we do that, I just want you guys all to introduce yourselves and just let people know kind of what your charter is. And Bob, I don't want to put an age on you, but let people know how long you've been out here and doing what you're doing. Nick, let's start with you.
Start with me.
Put it up there, Nick.
So I'm Captain Nick. I run a 40-foot jersey out of Olcott, New York. I've been a captain for 10 years. Been mating since 2007, and a lot younger than these guys.
Captain Brian Garrett, 36 Tierra, Oswego, New York, but I do come out here to Western New York with it for the month of May. And been in it, this will be year 22 for me.
Hey, I'm Captain Bob Songen, and I also run the 36 Tierra. Run it mostly out of Point Breeze, early April for brown trout fishing, and then from June through the rest of the season for mostly targeted salmon. I do go up west, and actually the three of us fish the same water off the Niagara bar in the late April, May time frame. And they don't want me to admit it, but I've been a captain for 40 years. I've been fishing Lake Ontario for 50. So I grew up in Buffalo walleye fishing, but salmon attracted me.
You guys have questions for the captains here, go ahead and drop in the comments. We'll get them to them. We're going to have these guys for about 40 minutes or so. So if you got questions for them, please put them in there. Nick, you're fishing out of Olcott. Brian, you're talking about you come up here to Wilson in the spring. Bob, you kind of move yourself closer to Wilson in the spring. What's special about that time in that April, May time frame? Brian, let's start with you.
I think what makes it special is the concentration of fish that happens off the Niagara bar. Like Gary going on first to get to the southern water, first in the water, just that collection of life that happens there, it kind of really comes alive there. It's just a real special time.
Going along with what Brian had to say, like I said, I think the influence of Niagara River has a lot to do with the bar. Fishing the bar, there's a lot of good structure there. There's an area right there off of the river, what we call the Red Can. It goes from 40 feet down to 200 feet. How far? Maybe a quarter of a mile?
Yeah.
A quarter of a mile. So fish like to hang on that structure. A lot of good color and nutrients coming down the Niagara River. The fish are coming from the winter habitat down deep up into that warmer water. They're hungry and they're ready to take advantage of a quick meal. And luckily, it's not always real fish that can bite.
There's nothing better to break the winter blues than starting your season off with drag, screaming camp, right? I mean, you can't top it. Yeah, historically, they show up there first. Like Brian said, water warms up, you get your color, and migration starts.
So all those fish come from the lake into that area. But the other thing that happens is there's a lot of fishermen and fisher ladies coming into that area too. There's a lot of boat traffic in there. What's that like navigating in that area that time of year?
Interesting, to say the least. Especially when everyone's trying to work that structure like Bob was talking about. You get a lot of boats want to stay on that ledge. There's some words that can be had. There is. Yes.
It could be pretty trying, pretty difficult, pretty crowded. You hope that the lake sets up fairly decent so that the boats can spread out. But typically, the fish are holding about the same level, so you get a lot of boats that aren't passing each other.
Hold on one second. This might have to make it.
I'm scared to kill. Did we get cut out?
How's that for everybody? Do we got better audio now? let us know in the comments if that audio is cleaned up a little bit now. All right, that's better. Okay. Tell me about some of those battles out there in the Niagara Bar.
Well, we try to avoid the battles at all costs, but there have been times where some boats get pushed up on the ledge, like they call it. You know, if you fish in the structure right there where it drops off from 40 down to 200 feet, and everybody's trying to be in that same spot, sometimes it could be a little difficult passing each other.
It's a lot easier to move a 10-pound ball than it is a 15-pound ball.
Absolutely. There you go. You got it?
I'll just reiterate what these two said. You know, I think for the most part, most folks are pretty good. You occasionally run into it. We have the same problem on the eastern end in the fall with the Salmon River. So you get used to traffic and people kind of work it out.
Well, you guys are all teaching the salmon school here at the show. Tell me a little bit about that, what that is. Some people here that are regulars to the show know what that is, but for folks that aren't from this area, what is the Lots of Salmon School all about here?
So, Lots of Salmon School. How long has it been going? 20 years? 25 years? 20 years?
Probably. I don't know. How long have you been
18?
here, Chris? Has it been 20
I
years?
haven't been here that long.
I think
Well, I did not to interrupt, but they actually started with the swap meet.
yes, correct.
Okay.
That's right. So I'm going back that far.
Right. That's
Yeah.
how this whole thing started. Was
Yeah.
and we would bring spoons that
Yeah.
we hadn't run in a while and stuff like that, and guys would get great deals
Yeah.
on them. And then Joe got roped into doing this show,
Yeah.
and then when this started, I think it was more like 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Not 20.
So I think what it is an opportunity for anglers of all levels to come and learn something. You know, when we're building this thing, we're having a lot of discussion. Like, you know, it's billed as an advanced class, but you're going to have skill levels, all skill levels in the room. So you want to give them the basic, and then build up from there. So I think we're going to do a good job with that. And then the real experienced guys in the room, in fact, I've talked to them, a couple of them today, they're like, this was an interesting take. You know, I'm coming because either A, you are going to show me something I haven't seen, or you're going to rattle my brain that I did this 20 years ago, and why don't I continue to do it? And I thought that was really good. And I had that conversation here not too long ago. So I think, you know, it's a time for guys to get together, learn a little something, pick up something, and hopefully it puts some more fish in their boat for them this year.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. But, you know, I hope they don't expect that they're going to find the golden ticket, okay? Because there is no golden ticket that's going to say this specific thing's going to catch me fish. All three of us fish differently. We've been preparing for this, and we've learned things from each other. Like Brian said, reminded each other of things that we used to do, that one may be doing and we're not doing anymore. And down the line, and like if you know, you could just pick up a little bit of what we might be doing. What we do may not necessarily work for everybody. Real quick story. I don't want to get off the subject. I had some guys years ago came from Michigan, and they were running a flasher that I'd run, and they had never caught a fish on it. They put their flasher on my boat, we caught fish on it. So, you know, things don't always work for somebody. There's other things. Nick?
I'm hoping we can help them understand why they're catching fish, not just go out there and do it. Say, you know, tell me why you're using this spoon, where I'm going to put it, and go out there and catch a fish. No, understand why you're catching fish. You're going for this temperature. You're going for this green water. Just something that each person can pick up something that helps them to figure out why they're catching fish, where, how, when, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. It's something that I see, like, just in my professional life and what I do is, you know, there might be a lesson that I learned 5 years ago, but it didn't mean anything to me at that time because I didn't have the context around it. And as I grew as a person, I heard that same thing 5 years later. It was like, oh, that resonated with me. Where maybe 5 years ago, that same message didn't mean anything to me. So if these guys are giving you some advanced advice, but maybe you're not quite at that level yet where you can even understand what that advice is, but maybe year 2, year 3, year 4 of doing this, then they say the same advice, and it's like, oh, yeah, now I understand what they're talking about, and you can use it. And that's why I think you have these people that come to the school every year. There are a lot of students that are going to be in that room that have been going there every year, and they want to hear maybe some of that message is the same, but a year or two ago they weren't ready to hear it. They didn't know what some of the things around that meant. But the other cool thing is, like, last year there were different instructors, and those guys had been there for a couple of years. Now you guys lend a different voice. You guys have a different perspective. So just the rotating instructors, I think, is a big deal too. But one of the things you guys said just a little while ago is you're learning from each other as you're putting this presentation together. What have you learned, Bob, from just this whole process?
Those guys are laughing.
Let's let Brian go first.
Let Brian go first. Yeah. We'll let Brian go first. Go ahead, Brian.
So, I guess I'll rewind. So we had a meeting
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, at least a little 2 weeks ago in Bob's basement. And other than looking at all his nice deer mounts, we talked fishing for a while. And, Bob's showing me his slides that he wants inputted, and I'm like, Bob, there's things missing in here. And he's like, no, that's the way I run it. And, I consider myself a little bit old school, taught by some old school guys from the Eastern Basin, and it was drilled into me to do it this way. So when I see somebody with a completely different take on something and they're like, oh, we're really successful, it's a spirited discussion. We had some, and I'll talk about what it is, but basically Bob runs his flies with single hooks and no beads. And I am very much of the school of the treble hook with the bead, providing the body with the single hook tournament tie in front of it. And when I saw Bob's flies with no beads, I'm like, those flies just look plain. It's just, and I understand why Bob does it. And it's actually, I've gone and talked to other anglers since. And to be quite frank, I think it's mainly because you get to fish a lot of colored water all year, whereas in Oswego, we do fish a lot more clear water all the time. And I think that's really what it comes down to.
Well, no, my attitude about that is this. The guys spend a lot of time trying to figure out what colors to put in them flies. Why should I screw them up with beads? Hopefully they've designed the fly to the point where all I got to do is put it in the water. But I will admit, there's one fly that I do put beads on. Okay, anyone that's ever run a Mirage fly or watch one of my ports say I talk about a purple Mirage. So I do have a bag of purple beads on the board.
Well, Nick,
Nick,
being the
what have
junior
you
member,
gathered?
I don't know what I could teach these guys.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, what they're going to learn from me, couldn't tell you. One thing that I can definitely tell you I learned from them, there's many different ways to catch these fish. We fish 3 different ways. I don't want these people in this class getting stuck, like Bob said, there's a golden ticket out there for something. There's many ways to do this. You don't have, if someone's catching them on meat, you don't have to catch them on meat. If someone's catching them on spoons, you want to run flies, sure, try it. Don't get stuck on one thing. There's many different ways, many different things you can do.
So Brian just said he's old school. He learned from old school. Bob, you're old school. Nick, you're a younger guy, but you learned under Vinny, Bob and Vinny, you guys went to captain school together, right?
Absolutely.
So he's a younger guy, but learned from old school. But is having Nick in the group with you guys, has he taught you guys some stuff just because he has a different perspective because he's newer to the sport than you guys are?
So what I learned is Nick keeps things very simple, and I like that. He doesn't want complicated. That's what I get from Nick when I listen to him talk. He's like, I just go, I do my thing. Nick's, you're probably more concerned about where the boat is than how it's presented than really what it is when it comes down to it. If Nick feels like he can present it correctly, it's going to get bit, regardless of really what it is. I think.
No, yeah,
right?
No,
Am I right?
That's a good way to say it. Another way I would say something like that is, if you're in a spot that's not loaded with fish, if there's 10 fish there, I want to catch 9 of them. If you're in a spot where there's 100 fish, I want that to turn into 99 fish. I want to be able to catch every fish I can out of each spot. I want everything to be presented perfectly. So I just keep it as simple as I can.
Bob, did you learn anything from Nick?
Yeah, I wish I was young. Pretty much what Brian said. You know, learn. I can't talk about him, but learn some of the baits he likes to run. Um, I try to do what he does, try to keep it as simple as possible. But then I must admit, there are times I start putting more things in the water, and which, if you're not used to doing what I do with that, or have a first mate to help you, it could cause a problem. And keeping it simple at times is some of the, years past, a charter captain that became a captain a couple of years before I did always said, fish are biting, one rod's enough. If the fish aren't biting, one rod's too much. So sometimes you can put too much in the water, so.
So you guys are fishing the same general area in the spring, but later in the year, you're kind of spread out across the lake. What have you kind of learned from each other over the last few months putting this together about just your different ports and how they fish differently? You're fishing out of the Oak, Bob, Nick's out of Alcott, Brian, you're down on the Oswego. So these are different areas. They're all on the New York side of Lake Ontario, but they're all pretty different areas in kind of what they present. So what have you guys kind of learned from each other and how the ports are different and maybe how they fish a little differently?
Well, I mean, we start early with the kings off the bat. It takes longer for them to migrate, show up other areas of the lake. Recent years, we've tend to later in the summer, August, September, we lose the kings and they kind of show up down in Oswego and they get good stage, and we haven't had that on the west end of the lake in a few years.
Yeah, definitely. I think Brian will agree. Being that the hatcheries down on the east end of the lake, they do get a better staging fishery. One of the things about that, though, I don't want to get off on a little rant, but there's one thing about us now that there wasn't 30, 40 years ago. Is 30 years ago, we didn't know how to catch salmon all year long. Okay?
That's huge.
Right, and that's huge. It has a major impact on what we see in August because we've depleted a lot of the salmon that were available during the course of the year. Now, as you heard, we're catching salmon from the end of April all the way to September, so it does affect our staging fishery on the west end more than it does on the east end, because even at that point in time on the east end, fish have to go back to the hatchery. If fish don't go back to the hatchery, DEC can't supplement with what's already naturally there. So in the fall, they definitely get the better fishery. There's no about that. We end up offshore a lot of times, unfortunately.
Yes.
Okay, and that's not a real good thing either, because we're catching. Steelhead was real great fishing, but we're already catching next year's salmon. We're catching 2-year-old salmon that aren't going to make it to 3 sometimes later in the year. So one thing, not to go any further, go a little further, one thing about my port on the west end of Lake Ontario, Point Breeze is the furthest north. Okay, it's the closest point to get to the deepest water. But what makes that very volatile is when the winds blow, it also changes the fastest. So, Brian.
Yeah, so I think the other thing too, Bob, you mentioned, the salmon return, and, years ago you weren't fishing salmon year-round or all season. I think we also never had a handle on natural reproduction, and now, with natural reproduction and the only South Shore river trib that's any good is the Salmon River, so we get a little extra bump from that. I think that plays into our return, even though we have a real successful summer fishery now, at least the last few years off of Oswego, that maybe we haven't had in years. Probably because of that, I would think.
You guys have a bunch of people coming in here tonight to do the reception, and then the school itself starts tomorrow. I don't want you to tell me everything you're doing at the school, but what does the school look like? If someone was thinking about doing it, kind of what does that weekend look like with you guys and hanging out with you, and what are you going to talk about, and kind of what does the itinerary, I guess, of the weekend look like?
Well,
How we built the outline?
yeah, you'd be better to talk about.
We were putting the outline together, and we were kind of looking at how we wanted to put this. It actually looks like a day of fishing with us. We start with we're basically going to start with water movement, how we came about that water. Then we get on the boat. What does the tackle look like? then we're out, preparation, then we get to on the water, what does the set look like going in, initial set, what adjustments are made if they're not biting, and then on from there, then we delve into tackle probably in the afternoon and what the actual tackle is. But I would say at least the first half of the day is basically you're getting up with us in the morning, you're walking down to the boat, looking at the apps, looking at this, looking at that. We've getting our reports from people. You know, we've watched Bob's report. And what do you delve from Bob's report? The folks that give reports, what do you take away from that? Okay, we've got our water set up for the day. Here's how we're going to attack it. That's pretty much how it fell out when we put it together.
I did the same school about 5 years ago, and this is my second time at it. I will tell you that the way I fished 5 years ago and the way I fish now is different. I have different and better electronics, different and better equipment, more tackle that's come out, okay, addressing being successful catching the salmon. So even in the 5 years between now and then, part of what I've contributed is more updated than it was 5 years ago. We definitely did not have the electronics like this. I used to be a surveyor like he is, and people used to say, well, I'm selling the boat with all the electronics on it. Well, damn it, the electronics ain't worth nothing because the stuff you bought 2 years ago was already outdated the year after you bought it or when you bought it. So electronics is constantly evolving. And it does have a major impact on how you see things and how you address them.
You're adjusting with the times. It's huge.
Right.
Yeah.
I find that really fascinating, Bob. And do you think the last 5 years, you said you fished very different than you did 5 years ago. Do you think that growth over the last 5 years was the fastest 5 year period in your time, or do you remember another time where it was faster growth over a 5 year time?
No, it was definitely the fastest.
Yeah.
Definitely the fastest. Technology, 30 years ago, technology was not coming around as fast as it is now. When I started, we were running paper graphs, and the paper graph always died in the middle of fighting the fish. Okay, when videos came out, the screens were only 5 inches. You barely could see what was going on. Mm-hmm. So, that technology now we have video, multi-display function displays on our boats that are as big as TVs used to be. So all that, it allows you to see more. All that has just made things evolve faster. Definitely the last 5 years have more impact.
Very cool. So you did tell me earlier in the show, you think people are going to come into the show and they're going to learn a lot, but it may not be that, type of moment. What do you think, though, when someone walks out of there, and maybe not what do you think is going to happen, what do you want people to say when they walk out the door on Sunday? Nick, we'll start with you.
Hoping they can learn something from me. Like I said, I want to be able to figure out why they're catching a fish. I hope they can understand why and how they're catching a fish to help them catch a few more fish. It's not rocket science, but it's not rocket science, but you got to pay attention a little bit. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, just what Nick said. I just hope on their way home, they're like, when he talked about such and such, I think I'm going to try that this year. Whether it's a tweak to a meat, tweak to a fly, whatever. I think, as long as they're taking something home and they're thinking about it, even on the car ride home, like that'll do it for me.
I think more than anything else, I wanted to think that it was time well spent.
Yes.
Okay, it was value added. Like reiterating what Brian said, there's something they took from it that they'll try. It may not exactly work for them, but they'll try, and hopefully it'll be able to help them be a little bit more successful. And it may not be an everyday thing. It may be all of a sudden, well, they talked about this happening on the lake, and when this happens, this is what they try to do. Maybe that one day or a couple days that they're out fishing, that may come back to them and they say, well, let me try that, see if it works this time.
So you guys spend a lot of time on the water. I'm sure there are many parties that come out and fish with you guys that it's just people want to come out and have a good time, relax, unwind. But there are other people that come on board and they want to learn. They want to be able to pick up something that they can take back to their boat, and maybe they fish near you, maybe they fish far from you, but they want to take that back to their boat and add that to whatever they're doing. What's something that you see, Brian, kind of maybe a blind spot for somebody, an easy fix? Is there something out there you're like, oh, I see people mess this up all the time, and here's what I would recommend to, kind of close up that hole?
Boy, think about that.
It's a hard question.
That is a tough question,
It's hard,
Chris.
hard to be the first person to answer that one. But what's kind of something that a lot of beginning trolling anglers mess up frequently?
I think it's understanding what the water's doing. And, I think there are times, and I'm sure Bob will agree with me, there are days where we run a lot of doubles in the East End, but you'll go out in the morning and it's perfect. You got your fish, the water looks great, the wind's not blowing. You go in, you come back out 3 hours later, nothing changed. Like the wind didn't start blowing, but the water's literally gone. Like, how do you react to that, And how do you change with the water as the day goes? I think when I talk to a lot of people, it's like understanding the water, and I'm still guilty of that too, even 22 years in, like having a concept of what happened or what did the water do and where did the fish go when that happened. I think that's the baits, learning the next coolest baits and having the greatest electronics is one thing, but the actual understanding of what the water's doing, I think is tough for people.
I think one thing that people get too worried about what everyone else is doing. Just go out and fish. That's how, if you're worrying about everyone else, you're not thinking about yourself. You're not paying attention to what's going on under the water. Maybe you put a rod down and you're fishing the derby and you don't close a swivel right on a flasher and boom, pops off and there goes your derby fish. Don't pay attention to everyone else. Focus on yourself first.
Well, I got to go along with Brian. I mean, the lake is constantly changing. Even though the wind didn't change, the current might change. And I think sometimes, depending on what their intention is, what do they want to do with their fishing? Are they out for a day of catching fish? Or are they out for a day of specifically they're fishing a derby and they want to catch one fish? Okay. A lot of times, I think because people they stay too long on one spot. Okay, they may be marking some fish, but now they've trolled for 2 hours, 3 hours, and done nothing. Well, if you're out there just to have a good time fishing, that's not the right thing to do. If you're out there trying to win a derby and you're marking some fish and they're not biting, that one fish may win you the derby. So maybe that individual may want to stay and fish their water, and the other individual, because he sees boats there, sometimes stays, even though it's not going to be productive. Got to be willing to make a move. Either another location, east or west, or of course we're fishing the South Shore, moving north to have an opportunity to successfully catch fish, if that's what your intent is, to have a good day catching fish.
So making that move, there's some opportunity costs. One is you're moving away from a place that maybe you're marking fish, but two is I got to take all my gear down. I got to put, go somewhere else, put the gear all back up. Maybe I just move further away from port, so now I cost myself some gas too because I got to go further away. How do you guys make that decision? Now's the time to move rather than now's the time we're going to stick it out and see if we can get something going. As captains, where you guys are doing this for a living, how do you make that call and what needs to happen for you to make that call?
I'm not a huge fan of making big moves, picking up and running. If we're in an area, fish disappear. I like to try to figure it out. Wind's doing this, kind of get an idea what the water's doing. You're watching your fish hawk. I like to troll to where I think the fish are going to be. I'm not huge into big moves. I think you learn the water better. That when you run over the water, you don't really necessarily know what's going on. You don't know what's going on underneath. You don't have anything down there to tell you. So I'm not a huge fan of moving big moves. I'll troll an area.
Bob?
For me, it really depends on the time of the year. After all the years of fishing, you kind of know this time of the year, this is what the lake's doing. There's no opportunity at another portion of the lake. Okay, as the year goes on, everything changes. There's more opportunities at different spots. typically, you know, if I pick a spot that I'm fishing, and typically I have 4 clients on the boat. The first hour, if I get 4 fish, I'm not going anywhere. First hour, I get none. I got to start figuring it out pretty quick because typically 1 move is all you've got. You're not making 2 because it's exactly what you said. For me, I run 9 rods a lot of times. By the time I reel them all in, especially long coppers and the long deep dive wires and that, it's 15 minutes to reel everything in, and then 15, 20 minutes to go where you're going to go, and then another 15 minutes to set up. That's an hour's worth of fishing time that you're not actually fishing. So I kind of judge it on what happens and what the opportunity looks like. But sometimes you got no choice. You just gotta go because, you know, as anything else, you know, we build a good relationship with our clients. We've fished a lot. Some of the people will fish with me for 25, 30 years. And they understand bad fishing. But no matter what, people still want to catch fish. Even you may not get your limit, but they still want to catch fish. And they still want to know that you're doing the best you can to allow them to have that happen.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Bob and Nick. I don't really like to pick up and go anywhere. Make small adjustments. To slide out a little bit. Later in the morning, did the bite quit, slide back in again? You know, just not large changes. I think smaller changes are better, especially if you're charter fishing. You know, with your clients, they, like Bob said, they get it. Our good clients get it. They understand what's going on. They know you're working.
One of the other things Bob said was have fun. Let's talk about that. I'm going to put this on you, Brian. I'm going to put you on the spot here again. Give us a story of, you guys will have to answer too, but I'm going to make Brian answer first just because he's got the mic in his hand. Give me a story, something, just one of the fun days that you remember. If you can give us kind of one of your really fun experiences from taking clients out or maybe just taking friends out. What's a day that if somebody says, tell me about a great day on the water, what does that day look like? What happened that day, if you got a funny story or just a story that's memorable?
There's so many, Chris.
It's easy to tell bad ones.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
tell me a bad one then.
No, I don't want to do that. No. You know, I guess for me, my days off in the summertime are tournament fishing days. And I've had some really good tournament fishing days with some good friends of mine. You know, you make a big comeback on day 2 or something like that. Those are the days that you remember. I'm trying to think of one that really stands out. I mean, even last year, I'll give you last year's. Oswego Pro-Am, day 1, everybody thought it was going to be a king tournament, and it was glaringly obvious at 9:30, quarter to 10, not only by watching the fleet, but by our pace, that it was not going to be a king day. And I made a decision pretty early to go get our brown trout. And we hadn't fished brown trout in 2 or 3 weeks. And at that point, you put on your go-to baits, you roll into where you think they're going to be, and we absolutely hammered them on the first pass. We turned around and came back. We only needed 2 on the turnaround, and we did like a triple or a quad. You know, I mean, those are the kind of days you remember where it's like at 9:30, you're like, oh, am I going to get 12 today? You know, and you're thinking, I know I could probably go in and get some browns and get to 12, but then how does it shake out? And as it turned out, the tournament basically turned into a brown trout tournament. And as we were leaving that brown trout water to go home, all the tournament teams are starting to roll in there, and the bite was starting to wane, so you knew you had, like, it was just a fun day because a lot of my guys at the time had not had experience brown trout fishing like that. To make a decision and have it pay off so big, I think, you know, it works out. So that, for me last year, that was the day, I guess.
Yeah.
I do have one day last year that comes to mind, but the biggest thing is every smile you see from every person that catches a fish. You can't top it. I mean, they're all so excited and happy. But there was one trip last year, we had a young kid, if I remember correctly, I think they're from the Jersey area. And he was up here and fishing with his aunt and uncle and his cousin. And he caught, I think he caught our, it was an afternoon trip, he caught our only mature. It was slow to start, and then we got on him. and he caught our only mature. We landed it, and he was shaking in excitement. I mean, he was literally. I mean, he's just there shaking, smile. Just to see that kid, just to see how excited he was, and my mate, who is a character, and these two will tell you, he does a little interview with him. The kid goes, "I'm going to celebrate by eating 1 million chicken wings." Just the excitement that people have is, that's awesome. But that one stuck out to me the most last year.
I got to go along with Nick. My most fun days is when I'm introducing someone new to the fishery, or especially young kids, okay, or young adults to the fishery. How many times they say they come up, they don't expect to really catch much, and we end up having a great day. Everybody's smiling. A 8-year-old fish catches a 1.5-pound king. It's the biggest fish, even though we're not going to keep him. It's the biggest fish the kid ever caught in his life, and he's smiling, and it just makes me feel much better that they're having a good time, and I'm having fun along with them having a good time. When the expectations are not exorbitantly high, it's a lot easier to please your clients and a lot easier to enjoy the time that you're with them. And it's not only catch a fish, but when you have good conversation and good lunch and all that stuff. So those are usually the best times.
So, as anglers, we're all pretty superstitious. I have some bananas actually right behind you guys
Right
for
here,
snacks.
under his
Yeah,
chair.
they're right
Why you
there.
stuck me in this chair, huh, Chris?
And I ate
Thanks a
one
lot.
earlier, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "We're not on a boat. We're good. We're fine." Obviously, that's a superstition that we all have. But do you guys have any good luck charms on your boat? Do you have anything on you that you carry with you when you're fishing that, like,
Oh, God.
this is kind of my good luck thing?
I'm going to have to think a little bit here. I can't say I have one certain thing, and I'm a hockey player. I mean, they're as superstitious as they come. I really can't think of anything. I'm going to have to think about this for a minute.
Yeah, think about it, you can come back to it. I get suspicious about the shirt that I'm wearing. I have shirts that I wear that I don't catch fish, and if they don't work, I'll burn them.
Yeah.
Okay? So I get suspicious. And at one point in time, it was blue shirts, and then all of a sudden my blue shirts weren't working, so they stayed. And I get very suspicious about the shirts that I'm wearing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they have I don't know if they have effect on my thinking or if they really have effect on the fishing.
I have undefeated shirts too. I do have undefeated shirts.
So ours on our boat is we don't count. So you
Okay.
don't count to 12. If you say, if the client says we got 11, we might be stuck there now.
Well,
So I always yell, no, there's no counting in fishing. No
If I
counting.
can jump in, another thing is, well, how many are we going to catch for the limit? How many? We only got to catch 6 more for the limit, and then the fishing stops.
Exactly. We're very superstitious about counting.
I think Nick's ready for the mic now.
I can agree with that one there. When you get to 11, you don't say anything.
Yeah.
But if you're new, if this is your first time doing it, you get to ask once, what's the limit? All right? If you come back, you don't ever get to ask again. You don't get to ask again.
Well, guys, really appreciate you coming over here and spending some time with us and chatting with us. Is there anything that you guys wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you about today?
So I got one thing. I think joining an organization is really important right now, whether it's Lotso, who puts on this show and does such a great job here on the western end, or we have an organization on the east end, Elosta, mirror image of Lotsa, and then the Charter Boat Association in the middle of the lake that also you don't have to be a charter captain to join. I just think it's power in numbers right now, and getting out, joining the organization, helping them out, getting the kids involved, bringing them. Right now you see numbers start dwindling in these groups, and I wish that wasn't the case. I think people should look up what their local organization is if they're really into it and get involved. That's kind of my plug for today. Let's, join the.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been a member of LOTSA, or am a member of LOTSA, also a member of Lake Ontario Charter Boat Association. And like Brian said, they there's associate members. You don't have to be a captain. A lot of the meetings, there's some great information presented. Last meeting we were at, Brian Wydell, who was a biologist on one of the survey boats, was there explaining what our bait fish population looked like. Also, some new techniques they're doing now. They're doing bottom trawls to identify year-old fish and whether those fish are naturally reproduced or stock fish, hatchery fish. And those opportunities to understand and learn those things only enhances the understanding of the fishery. People that they don't necessarily have to question and worry about what's really going on. They actually get a handle on what's going on by the information shared.
Along lines with the organizations, get out and help with the pen projects. They're huge. It's all volunteer work. Every hand there counts. I mean, those are the fish we're fishing for. I mean, it takes a lot of people. But if you want to enjoy it, help.
Yeah. Excellent stuff, guys. He's Captain Nick Glosser, Captain Brian Garrett, Captain Bob Songen. These are the instructors this year for the salmon school here at the Greater Niagara Fishing Expo. Really appreciate it. I think people think that you guys do this show and you show up for 2 days and you talk about salmon, but there's a lot of work that goes into this thing well before you ever stand up on the stage. You guys are putting all these presentations together, you're talking, you're putting your heads together, trying to come up with good stuff to present to these folks. So it's a lot of work, and appreciate you guys doing that, and appreciate everything you do for the fishery. It's great stuff, and of course appreciate you spending some time with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
That's good.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us.
it.
All right, thanks guys, thanks for watching. I'll turn off the camera here, we'll be good to go.